Good evening, everyone. Elliot here from Each League Boxing Repeat. You're joining us following the event at Wembley Arena, the Boxer event. We've just seen Richard Riakporhe dismantle Fabio Turchi in 2 rounds. To discuss that fight and others from that card, I'm joined by my friend and ESBR cohort, a younger man than me, Danny, as is evidenced by his hairline and his freshness at this hour. Danny, how you doing, mate? You well?
That's a very kind introduction, mate. Yeah, I'm all good. Yourself?
Good. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Not too bad. As I was saying, alluding to there, being slightly older than you, I was delighted that the fight actually only went 2 rounds. But we'll get into the Riakporhe fight first. People coming into this fight, obviously, with looking at the record of Turchi, that it would be quite a challenging fight for Riakporhe. Is that something an opinion that you held coming into this contest?
It was. I thought Turchi would have enough craft, experience, sort of that know-how to sort of spoil Riakporhe, maybe not for the whole fight, but certainly for maybe 5, 6, 7 rounds. I think we've seen that in a few Riakporhe's fights in the past, haven't we? Where like if he's not knocking you out, he's not really looking particularly good. Somebody a Coley in that sense at times, I suppose. I don't think I definitely wasn't expecting second round knockout in the fashion we saw. But yeah, I thought Turchi would offer more. I can't remember if it was a Twitter space or a podcast, or I remember it was listening, maybe Rob Tebbett or something, and he was saying they weren't sure they were going to even reschedule the Turchi fight. Apparently Turchi, I don't know if it was COVID, but took quite poor health for a while, and it was rumored it could be finished. And I think that's maybe why you saw the trainer, jump in so animatedly and quickly. Normally you won't see the trainer do that, especially after a body shot. So I think Turchi maybe didn't have a whole lot left in there.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you about that because that was quite a bizarre ending to the fight. I wasn't necessarily expecting, like you say, from a body shot. I mean, if it was a concussive headshot, you might expect that more of a reaction. But he essentially ran in like some sort of bullfight, essentially waving the flag. Is that something that surprised you as you watched it real time?
Yeah, it was really surprising. As I say, it's normally you'd see trainers. It would be like a concussive sort of beating their fighters taking. He got up from a body shot. I'm sure. I certainly wouldn't have hit from a body shot off Richard Riakporhe. But you would like to think that there's not going to be the same sort of health implications from that. But obviously, the trainer knows their fighter better than certainly me and you do, and he obviously knew that he was only going to subject them to further beating. So I would never criticize a trainer for doing that. Maybe the fashion was a bit OTT, but yeah, no foul play from me.
I suppose if we take Riakporhe, and obviously he's been on a fairly decent run, I suppose, recently. You'd say, I suppose, Duradola, Juma, now Turchi, and then obviously he's got wins over Billam Smith as well, and McCarthy. Would you say, I suppose, British level wise, probably second to Oakley in the rankings? I'd say now maybe at cruiserweight. Obviously Oakley is world champion. Do you see Riakporhe as kind of entering that kind of conversation as being a legitimate world level fighter? And if so, I'll ask you that question first, and then we'll come to some other names.
I think like world level as a term is sort of quite ambiguous now in boxing. I mean, we were told like a couple of months ago that Chris Van Heerden was world level for the Conor Ben fight. I think like the McCarthy and Billam Smith ones certainly put him like well clear British level, obviously. And those two you would say have both been European champions, so that clears him from European level. So I think he's definitely like, in a broader sense, a world level fighter. I think there's a big difference between like world level and like elite, like world class. I don't know if Riakporhe's there yet. In saying that doesn't really mean you can't win a world title in boxing. So I'm not sure if that's really an answer, but world level in the way that most sort of pundits and commentators use, I would say, is like 100% at this stage.
Well, first, so obviously the world title, well, the champions in that division obviously being Oakley, Breedis, Makabu. Do you see him beating any of those at the moment? Way to step up and challenge any of those guys?
The Coley fight's a tricky one because they're sort of very similar, aren't they? I don't really know how that fight would. You would obviously have to favour a Coley, I suppose. He's more tried and tested at that world level. Like that C-Slack or CS-Slack, however you pronounce it, it's probably the best bit of form that either of them have. I know sort of Glowacki was shot to bits when a Coley fought him. You probably have to favour a Coley. The Breedis fight's a tough one, like a really tough one. Still similar to Akoli. I don't think Riakporhe looks like really comfortable fighting in the inside, really. Brady's obviously getting on a bit now. You'd have to make him favourite. Makabu, thought he lost to Machinu the last fight. Would be quite small up against Riakporhe. Maybe that's quite a good fight for Riakporhe if he was. And then the other champion, the weakest, that Gulamarian, not really sure if that pronunciation's spot on, but they, in like a couple of days ago, said they would be willing to make a fight with Riakporhe. I think Sky were sort of quite pushing that if Riakporhe came through tonight against Turchi, that's the fight they would look at. His resume is like beyond paper thin for a world champion. Gulamarian, I was looking at it before we came on here, so I think Riakporhe that's the one they'll target. They'll try and get that WBA title off Gulamarian. I mean, he's not even fought outside of France yet. Fought no top 20 recognisable fighters. I suppose you could say the same about Riakporhe maybe, but I think the Gulamarian route's the one they'll go down. I'd probably make him a strong favourite there. Makabu, I mean, it would be a step up, definitely name-wise. Makabu, definitely, his best days are probably behind him. Akoli, tough. Brady's really tough is sort of what my evaluation would be in the 4 champions.
Yeah, no, I think I'd agree with you. I suppose it depends if Brady's manages to land the Jake Paul fight anytime soon if he goes down that avenue. But obviously other guys in that division as well. Obviously, you're looking at the likes of, I suppose, Gassiev, Dorticos as well. All sort of tough fights. I suppose the thing with Riakporhe, looking at him, I suppose, his physical build, and I suppose it was that 11 KOs and 15 now. Obviously, he's got power. So I think as well, it'd be interesting to see where he goes. There's just some interesting fights coming up for him there, to be perfectly honest. I just think, as I think you've said as well here, like it's hard looking at the fight tonight and seeing that as a step up, and then kind of seeing where's he going to go from there. It's almost as though that it was kind of a bit of an anticlimax with the quick as it ended, and and the method and the way that it ended.
I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility you'll see Riakporhe go up to heavyweight either. Him and White have sort of been having, like, I don't know if you've probably not gone as far as a back and forth yet, but there is sort of drummings of that fight. He's massive, and if I think they can't secure him a world title fight in 1 or 2 fights, I think you'll see him go up to heavyweight. Obviously Sky have just announced to sign in the Parker, so they've got Hugh Fury Hunter fight coming up. So and the cruiserweight, Hearn's having nightmares getting a big fight. You would say he probably has more sway than Sky and Boxer at the minute. So I think if you don't see a world title fight probably against Gulamarian or Makabu in the next 6 months, maybe a year, you'll probably see Riakporhe go up to heavyweight.
So we come from the Riakporhe fight, obviously down to the chief support, which was Zach Shelley versus Jermain Brown. Obviously Shelley won that UD. Is that? I mean, first of all, how did you score it? I suppose you agree with the judges there on the way that fight played out?
Yeah, I did. First round or two maybe looked as if the sort of that, I know you would say maybe more classic back foot boxer style of Brown could maybe cause Shelley a few problems, but just too physical really, wasn't he? It wasn't the best fight. I mean, it'll not be winning any, like these famous domestic title fights. I don't think that'll be one that's mentioned too often, but yeah, I had Shelley winning pretty wide. Just they both sort of fell into each other quite a lot, and I think when that happened, Shelley was so much stronger and then fresher and fitter down the stretch, and I had him up about 4 or 5 rounds, I think. How'd you have it?
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I think I was looking at it going Shelley obviously looked fresher and quicker. You look at it kind of going put this together, and this you'll kind of dominate this fight. Essentially, it was almost like you were saying, kind of got caught up in kind of exchanges didn't necessarily need to get caught up in, but then at the same time, as soon as he actually went to sort of boxing, he looked like he had too much for me, even though he was kind of boxing within himself. So yeah, I agree with you. Looked like comfortable UD win. I suppose for Zach Shelley, then the question really would be, where does he go from here? I suppose domestic level, again, you've got kind of Lennox Clark, middleweight British champion, fighting Heffron. That's in mid-July. Is that something you'd like to see Shelley sort of get in the mix of that sort of fight? I mean, there's Hutchinson, those sort of names around there. Where do you see him going essentially after this fight?
Yeah, was it an eliminator for the British tonight? I think he said in an interview with our gaffer that it was. Yeah, I mean, that's the obvious path, isn't it? Fight for the British against the winner of that Heffron fight. Wouldn't be completely opposed to seeing a rematch of the Jack Collin fight. Probably never going to happen due to, there seems to be a bit of beef brewing between Boxer and Matchroom, so I don't know how much cross promotion we'll see there. Yeah, I think the British probably makes the most sense. I know it's probably light middle is where the sort of real is really thriving domestically. I'd say that's more than close to impossible cup for Shelley. He's massive even at middle, isn't he? So yeah, I think pursuit of the Heffron winner for the British makes most sense. Probably not too hard a fight to make either.
Now, I suppose, rather than obviously we were discussing obviously pushing Riakporhe towards the world title sort of level and world level there. Zach Shelley, do you reckon maybe sort of a year out, 18 months out before we can even sort of come to those sort of discussions? I mean, we're looking, I suppose, like English, British level maybe now. Do you see anything in Zach Shelley that can maybe go beyond that, or is it too early to say?
He's young, isn't he? He's what, 23, 24, Shelley, is that right? Yeah, I mean, that's
24 now, yeah.
24. He's got time, doesn't he? I mean, it's a long way away if we're having those conversations, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, he's got raw physical attributes, seem to have a rock solid shin, good cardio, which, I mean, those attributes alone, coupled with his strength, he's got good punching power, can get you far. He'll need a lot of refining if he is to push on towards that level, but we've definitely seen lesser physically and technically gifted fighters push on, so no, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I just think it's very early to say with any confidence he'll get to that level.
If we go into obviously one of the other sort of intriguing fights, I suppose, on the bill tonight was obviously Chris Kongo versus Sebastian Formella. Kongo obviously went 10 rounds. Kongo with a fairly wide UD victory there. Guys, get your thoughts on that fight. Did you watch that fight? How did you score that fight? Are you in agreement with that decision?
Yeah, Kongo definitely won it. I thought we saw a gamer, more sort of expansive Formella than we saw against Ben. I didn't actually watch his fight against Sean Porter. I'd imagine that looked quite similar to the Ben fight. I'm not sure if the sort of ambition we saw from Formella was maybe down to he felt he was in less danger. I think in the Conor Ben fight, you sort of saw him. I mean, don't get me wrong, he took an absolute battering off Ben, but he was definitely he was just sort of looking to survive the whole fight. Whereas I think he sort of fancied his chances a bit more against Kongo. Kongo looked good. Again, I suppose you're probably gonna ask me where does he go? How far can he go? It's tricky. The Marku fight is probably the fight to make, isn't it? Marku's still with Boxer and Sky, as far as I know. So, I mean, that's the fight to make. Who would I favour there? Not sure.
So you obviously preempted my question there with that answer. But I was going to say as well, obviously Kongo, he's got that loss, hasn't he, to McKinson as well. And again, this was also billed as kind of quite a key comeback. He's almost kind of recovering from that. And if you look at, I suppose, where kind of Ben kind of is, I mean, that rank, that division at world level has got essentially some insane fighters above it, where it's just sort of blocking up the belts essentially. I was just wondering, given that I suppose Kongo now is, what is he now? He's sort of 29 years of age, so kind of prime or entering prime level. How far do you potentially see him going in the welterweight division?
We'd need the British would obviously be the first sort of step you look at.
All the way. I mean, yeah. Do you see him? I mean, obviously, tonight's was obviously for one of those sort of international belts, wasn't it? Essentially, do you see him? Can you see him competing on the world level? Given that obviously that division has obviously got Spence, Crawford, Ennis, Ortiz Jr. in it, or do you see him essentially having to bide his time, sit that out, and then hope for some big domestic fights and essentially maybe some fringe sort of world level fights?
To put it lightly, going to have to sit that out. To compare it, you can't even talk about the Spence and Crawford or Chris Kongo. I mean, we'll lose all our subscribers if we sort out that. I think. He's not listening to this. There's loads of good domestic fights. You know what I mean? We all love a good domestic fight. Don't know how easy the Echo Esserman fight would be to make with Sky stuff. He's unfortunate, you know what I mean, right? Because if Conor Ben's got this huge promotional back and he's just completely bypassed British level, I'm not I couldn't sit here and tell you with confidence that Conor Ben would win comfortably off Kongo. McKinson the same, you know what I mean? So I suppose we say now Conor Ben's at world level, but there's no way, there's no reason you could say that Chris Kongo couldn't have beat, was beat Formella, couldn't have beat Vargas, Granados, Van Eerden. I reckon he'd beat all three of them. You know what I mean? Maybe not in the sort of destructive fashion Ben has. I think if I was Chris Kongo, not that he's going to lose any sleep over my advice, just similar to what you say, make the big fights you can in house with Sky. The Marku fight's one. If you get a fight with Florian Marcus past that, you've got huge profile, huge options. Stock goes through the roof really, and
Would you say that fight is made then? Obviously, with the both the companies, would you back Congo in that fight
against what, Marku?
Yeah.
It's tough. Who was Marku's last fight? Jenkins. Jenkins was boxing well against Marku until Marku catches up to you. I probably would favour Congo. I probably would back Congo to beat Marku. Tough fight, close fight, really good fight, really good clash of styles. That's the fight to make, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. No, 100%. I think as well, it'd be intriguing, like you say, like especially with what happened with Jenkins, Marku, and then you've got Congo not necessarily carrying power to necessarily keep Marku off. I don't think either. So it'd be interesting to see how that sort of plays out. But yeah, a lot of interesting fights actually potentially to be made under the boxer banner over the next sort of year and a half. So yeah, I'd like to say thank you very much, Danny, for your time. Hope you guys enjoyed watching the card. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Let us know what you think to the upcoming fights in the comments. And yeah, have a good evening. Take it easy.